Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. We're back in the pub here to answer your burning questions. We've got Chris Hamill, we've got Patrick Van Straten. The first question was sent in,
names.
and it's long, by the way, was sent in by JC Kingslayer. Shorten it next time. He says, what is the main thing that the rest of the top six have to do to try and keep pace with Liverpool and City in the near future? Is it to do with the staff within the club itself, or has it all got to do with the transfers and recruitment, etc.? Question mark.
That couldn't have been on Twitter. Did he share a Word document with you?
I don't know. Zach wrote the script, so he gathered these questions. But anyway, JC Kingslayer, how do people keep pace with Liverpool? Because that's an impossible task. They've dropped just 2 points this season. I think since January, they've drawn one game in the league. So I think it's impossible to try and keep pace with that.
I know we don't want to be apologetic in terms of what we're talking about, but the most interesting thing that's happened in this transfer window in January is just the continued demise of the traditional top six.
Yeah.
At least from my perspective. Obviously, you guys haven't enjoyed it all that much. Arsenal fans did enjoy drawing against Chelsea, maybe a little bit too much. And you're fresh off watching Manchester United lose to Burnley at home for the first time in 60-odd years. So I imagine you're trying to keep a lid on it. Who do we think is the most interesting team to talk about in the traditional top six? And then I think we should talk about some people that might sneak in, like Wolves.
Yeah. Because I think there is gaps there to be had. Fourth place is still viable for the likes of Wolves and for the potentially likes of Sheffield United. I don't think they'll get there. They will tail off, but people could make arguments that Wolves could get top four. Mikey McCubbin, I think, put some money on Wolves getting top four this morning.
Well, especially because they're not currently playing to like their best level. I think last season everyone at Wolves pretty much had like a season where they were all at like 85-90% of their ability. This year, I think Ruben Neves has been pretty bad. Rui Patricio has been really bad this season, weirdly. Like, I really rate Rui Patricio, but he's having a pretty poor season. And Jota and Jimenez, while they've had good games here and there, have overall been down on the way they were last season. So
Jimenez is starting to pick up, isn't he?
A little bit, but his numbers are way down. And I mean, like, again, I think that with Jimenez, you tend to see him do a lot of stuff in like one game, and then the next game he'll be virtually anonymous.
Yeah.
And I think Wolves have just generally been quite patchy this season.
I suppose it helps that Adama Traore has gone into absolute orbit.
Well,
and running past people.
Yeah, I mean, he's still not hugely productive, is he? He's all right.
In terms of completed dribbles, I think he's second in Europe, but whether or not that manifests into chances created.
I think he's top. I think he's top per 90, and he does get them up the field, which is good when like people like Ruben Neves and Jean
Top per
Martino.
nine. Last time I checked, he was sandwiched between Messi and Neymar.
I think he's top now. I think he's top. But yeah, I think
That's because Neymar's just phoned it in. I saw a video of him last night just passing with his arse. Did you see that? And then did you see the Mbappe one? They're absolutely taking the piss, those two in that league. Mbappe's lying on the floor, ball comes across and he just slaps it in with his hand and just looks at the ref like, what are you going to do? Book me then.
Talking of taking a piss.
And then he tweeted it out himself, the video.
Yeah, it's an absolute joke.
Has anyone watched Chelsea recently? I think it's a piss take that they're still nailed on for fourth, to be perfectly honest. Kepa has the worst save percentage in Europe's top 5 leagues.
Which is quite incredible given that he cost £72 million. And there are reports this week that Frank Lampard is ready to cut his losses on Kepa already.
And he's not so good with his feet that it makes up for it. Like, people say he's good with his feet. He's okay with his feet. But it's not like you're watching him and he's like Edison, like absolutely spraying passes out. You're kind of like, yeah, he's fine. But also, he's given up goals this season with his feet. Like, you know, like against Everton, for example.
Well, I saw a couple of Bleacher Report guys tweeting that Chelsea are already considering selling him and they're currently looking for long-term options. Maybe a little bit De Gea-esque in that regard, where they're just kind of playing it safe. At least you have Dean Henderson to come back. But sticking with Chelsea, underlying numbers are okay. And I was winding Zach up in the office yesterday, more so than I probably meant, saying that if this Chelsea team finished fourth, it'd be the worst team to finish fourth or in the Champions League places since David Moyes' Everton. I do think it's turning into that sort of race. It's getting very attritional there. But actually, taking the second most shots, conceding the second fewest. I'm sure if you dug a little bit deeper, the quality of chance would probably fluctuate. I don't know how many chances they're creating in the box, for example. Obviously, Kepa conceding a disproportionate amount of goals is worrisome. Like, no matter how good your defence is, if your keeper's that bad, doesn't really matter, does it? Something's got to give. So we've already spoke about them in terms of who they should sign, but do you guys still think they should finish fourth? And how? Some people have been pretty damning on the progress that has been made at Chelsea, because I think before the season started, right, if we'd have said Lampard's going to finish fifth or sixth, which we did, a lot of people would have been quite reasonable about that. But then they got pretty good pretty quickly. A lot of players started overperforming, and the parameters changed. People changed the definition of Chelsea's, what success would look like for Chelsea, right? So do you still think they're going to finish fourth?
Not even overperforming, I'd say. Like early in the season, their numbers, they were absolutely neck and neck with Liverpool. And Liverpool were getting the rub of the green, and actually have had the rub of the green all season. But then around November, Liverpool found that extra gear, and Chelsea simultaneously slowed down, and not only slowed down, but they started letting everything in. Kepa started letting everything in, and Abraham, his conversion rate just like absolutely like fell off a cliff. So they've had some bad luck as well, but I still think they're like clearly the fourth best side. Like I don't look at any of the sides below them and think they're really better. And I think you could extend this to Leicester. I think, you know, if you want to say like Chelsea will be the worst side to finish fourth, I think Leicester will be the worst side to finish third for quite some time. Like I mean, I like Leicester. I think they're decent. But before the West Ham game, they'd taken 7 points from 7 games, and yet they're still really comfortable in third. And that just shows like, I don't know, in a way I'd like both of those sides to plummet a little bit, Chelsea and Leicester, because then we would have a truly exciting top 4 race, because there are so many sides who could get into it right now. United, you know, we can criticise United, and I'm sure we'll come on to them in a minute, but they're within touching distance of the top 4. And Spurs are as well, and Wolves are as well, and Sheffield United are as well.
Similar to what you said with Wolves, I do think what might buoy Chelsea and Leicester fans is that you can see there being more to come, right? I mean, Tammy Abraham is out, but it doesn't look as serious as first assumed. He left Stamford Bridge just with ice on his ankle, not in any sort of protective boot. So it looks like he might miss the game against Hull, then come back for that crunch tie against Leicester. That'll be a really interesting game, and probably a better barometer of where both teams are at in terms of securing a Champions League place. But I can see Leicester improving, I can see Chelsea improving. I can't necessarily see that with United. It's harder to see that with Tottenham at the moment. I think there's more to come. In the West Ham game, actually, that's the best I've seen Harvey Barnes play in a long time. Goal and assist. Like, I think Leicester fans have been crying for that output for a while.
How does Ndidi come back so quickly?
From knee surgery, 13 days before.
13 days.
Because they were truly dreadful against Burnley.
Awful.
Like really bad, and just didn't have game control. And then like, I wouldn't put it just down to Ndidi, because like you said, Barnes was good, and
that was Tielemans' best game in a long time, and I think there's much more to come from him as well.
Yeah, that's definitely true. But I mean, at the same time, I would say that Leicester have generally been playing probably above their level most of the season. Like Vardy, for instance, has been over-converting at an insane rate. Schmeichel is having a ridiculous season. The fullbacks, particularly Pereira. I mean, Pereira's just like having two players in one on that flank. I think he and Ndidi are second and third in the league for defensive actions per 90 minutes. Right. And Pereira's doing that while doing loads of ball progression and like being a real danger. It's wild.
In the last 46 out of the last 47 games that Pereira started, he's completed the most tackles, I think, on the pitch. The guy is an absolute savage.
He's not old either. I think he's 26.
I think Vardy, yes, massively overperforming, and we'll see the extent of that injury and the impact it has on Leicester, because I do think Leicester's plan B is very Europa League.
That said, Iheanacho last night won a penalty, got an assist.
And he's coming to perform at the right time for Rodgers, though, isn't it?
But Maddison hasn't been anywhere near his kind of scintillating best. So you're thinking that might counteract the whole Vardy thing. So I do think there's more to come from Leicester. I think if they make a couple of shrewd signings, we've not really spoken about who Leicester should sign either, so maybe we could come on to that in a little bit. They could really secure Champions League football because of just how they might not get Champions League football because of how good they are. They might get it because of how bad everyone else is.
They will in a sense though, right? As in like they might get it because they both have this lead and they're as good as everyone chasing them. Even if they're only as good as everyone chasing them, because they've built up this lead, they will get it. But I think I don't look at the teams below them and think, wow, these teams really deserve that place over Leicester. I think I'm perfectly happy for Leicester to get that top 4 spot. I think they do deserve it.
I agree. But they're now at a point where losing Vardy might not be cataclysmic because of how bad everyone else is. And this is a guy who's having a proper Indian summer, isn't he? This is his second best season in terms of all of his underlying numbers. Like, this is the first time in a long time he's having over 2 shots per night. He might be having fewer touches. I think he's having double the amount of touches in the box under Brendan Rodgers. So, like, their attack is really geared around him. So
you would do something in attack though as a result, right? Like even if it's just recall Slimani from Monaco or something.
Seeing him back at the King Power.
I also think that they obviously are looking for another centre-back, aren't they? They had that bid for Demiral rejected out of Juventus for like 30 million euros, and then he snapped his ACL, wasn't he? So
he started playing, didn't he?
I think that they'll probably look be looking for a centre back because if an injury to Soyuncu or Evans,
but they had to bring Morgan on
because Begovic has done his ACL as well, hasn't he? Or
Benkovic has it?
Yeah, is it Benkovic?
Benkovic, yeah.
Yeah, he's got a serious knee injury as well.
Really, didn't hear that.
So I think
it's a shame.
I think they'll potentially look to bring a centre back in, but there's only 10 days of the window left, and there's been all signings from people chasing the top 4. Even Chelsea could do with forward cover, especially if Giroud goes to Inter Milan. Michy Batshuayi.
If they get 5 million for
really.
Giroud, by the way, that's class.
I don't think Michy Batshuayi is held in particularly high regard by Frank Lampard anyway. So I think they'll probably look to bring in a striker. Mason Mount is struggling right now. Feels like he's being overplayed a little bit by Frank Lampard and is taking both barrels from nearly every Chelsea fan I know, every single game.
But he's not a bad player to be able to bring off the bench, which is what they did against Arsenal. You know, and Pulisic is out injured right now.
But I think for a lot of Chelsea fans, they'll be making an argument that they could do with a creative midfielder, given that Ross Barkley's clearly not at that level and Mason Mount is struggling.
I agree. After the Arsenal game, Lampard was saying, not a fan of the January transfer window, and Chelsea have had a very checkered past, but he was saying, this is a window where we might have to use it to kind of bring in short-term options, almost like begrudgingly accepting that Chelsea are probably going to have to get someone in who's not good for the long-term future of the club. And Edison Cavani has been linked pretty incessantly, but this is a bit of a ghost of Chelsea's transfer past, isn't it? Signing someone who will, in January, he will come in on big wages with existing problems. He's got a problem with his knee, hasn't he? And being none the wiser as to whether it'll actually benefit them in the long term. So I'm not sure about Cavani.
And I'm quite bullish about Chelsea's attacking core anyway. Like, I understand they might want that depth, but you think if you're playing a 4-2-3-1, like you've got those 4 spots, and yes, Abraham's out for a bit now, but your options for those positions are still Abraham, Batshuayi, Giroud, Willian, Hudson-Odoi, Mount, Pulisic, Pedro, who's disappeared off the face of the earth. Like there are these guys around. Like, I mean, there is still depth in the squad. So, I mean, I understand they might want that forward, but I would also look at it and be like, can we not just ride with what we have? Like, there should be enough here. Even if we just say, you know what, we're not going to get that 5 mil for Giroud, we're just going to keep it.
I think that for Chelsea, though, one signing guarantees them 4th, doesn't it? So
I don't know if anything guarantees anyone anything right now. Like, I mean, the way that Kepa's goalkeeping, like, who knows?
True. I mean, we may as well talk about some of the other teams outside it then. Tottenham, do we think Tottenham stand any chance of climbing back in with Mourinho in charge and Harry Kane out until, they say, until April, but it's almost definitely going to be the season, isn't it, with that tendon?
As much as people like to see Mourinho fail, like the underlying numbers are better at Tottenham now.
Defensively, especially.
Yeah, defensively. And I think maybe they've been a little bit unfortunate and people don't necessarily give Mourinho that leeway, do they? So I do think Tottenham fans have every reason to believe there's a chance of finishing in 4th. And it looks like they might be priced out of a move for Willian Jose. I think Real Sociedad wants 70 million. And of course, they're competing for Europa League football right now, aren't they? They're having a very decent season with Mikel Merino and Odegaard in the side. They've got a really good spine. I'm not surprised they don't want to sell one of their star assets. Do you know anything about Willian Jose? Would it be a good addition, Pat?
He's all right. Like, he's basically a penalty box striker. Like, if you look at his numbers, that's what he does. He just gets shots in the box, and that's fine. But he's 28 years old. He's massively overpriced. Like, I mean, if you're already looking at Sociedad, then I think the sensible thing to do would be to try and hammer out a deal with Real now for Odegaard to come in the summer. Like, I think Arsenal, I think Man United, I think Chelsea, all of those clubs should be trying to get Odegaard in the summer. But that is one for later. It's not going to happen now, obviously. It just seems an odd one.
It would be unbelievable if Tottenham don't bring a striker in, though. Unbelievable. I think that'd be such a poor decision by Daniel Levy, even if it's a 6-month deal for anybody at this stage. To come out of January with Harry Kane having a 4 to 5 month long-term injury and not bring a striker in when your only other option is Troy Parrott,
or even
a howling decision.
Even a wide player and say we'll play Son there, like something.
Yeah,
you have to do something
because they chose not to replace Fernando Llorente in the summer. They made that decision that they were going to let him go and his contract was running out and they weren't going to replace him. But to not bring a player in now, even as a Llorente even as a Llorente replacement, now that Kane's injured, is madness. It's a ridiculous decision making by Daniel Levy, and it's probably a decision that will cost them a top 4 spot. Like if they got the right forward in, top 4 is not long gone for Tottenham. They're only 6 points off.
And we all said on the podcast, didn't we, that we thought Piontek if he was gettable for £30 million, would be a very sensible signing. Like, he wasn't starting games consecutively. His form's picked up a little bit. Saw him score in the Coppa Italia, I think. Recently played really well. So AC Milan might be, less open to the idea of making their money back on him, I guess.
Well, I think Tottenham offered, at least the Athletic reported, Tottenham offered Victor Wanyama and Juan Foyth for Piontek.
What is this football manager?
Which is a very weird decision and probably a fairly damning indictment of Juan Foyth's future at the club under Jose Mourinho if he's willing to give him in a part exchange for a striker. But there are plenty of issues at Tottenham. I just think striker is the most obvious. They probably need a central midfielder, although over the last 3-4 games, Lo Celso has been absolutely unbelievable and probably their best player.
And they've added someone.
Thankfully, that's finally happened for Football Daily's reputation that Lo Celso has eventually turned up in a Tottenham shirt.
We always do. Come on.
And obviously, Jan Vertonghen's fall off a cliff has happened, so I don't know whether or not they'll look to bring a centre-back in January or the summer. I just feel it's so weird that none of these sides have signed anyone.
And it's
Man United's the same.
It's the Eriksen thing, isn't it? The Eriksen thing is hanging over Tottenham. It's almost like they have to sort that out before they go about in earnestly kind of sorting out other problematic areas of the side. You just mentioned Manchester United there, took the words out of my mouth. At this point, do you entrust Ole with £80 million to bring in Bruno Fernandes? Because Manchester United were interested last summer, but not to the point where they wanted to make a concrete move, right? But then he signed a new contract, and now United are back in for him and are going to have to pay much more than he was available for last year, which I think was in the region of 40 to 50. But even then,
I think Tottenham had a £60 million bid rejected.
People were sceptical, weren't they? Okay, maybe a little bit more than that then. But is that a panic buy in your opinion?
I wouldn't describe it as a panic buy because United have been interested in him for a while now, haven't they? What I would describe it as is effectively a massive overpayment again because we've got no other options to go for. Like we've backed ourselves into a corner with Bruno Fernandes. Clearly, he's a player that's fancied by Manchester United and has been for a long time. But yet again, the payment structure is going to be an absolute madness, and I still don't think it'll happen. It's just a myth of a player. I don't think he'll leave Portugal.
I think that'll be for the best though, because I think for this sort of money, there are just going to be better options in the summer. Like in the summer, if Villa go down, Grealish will cost less than that, I think. And a guy I recommended on our kind of new look scout report was Lorenzo Pellegrini from Roma. Like I think you definitely trade Roma for Man United. There'll be certainly a huge pay increase, and I'd be shocked if he cost more than 60 mil. And he's better than Maddison and Grealish for passes into the box and passes into the penalty area and expected goals and assists per 90. And he's younger than both those guys as well, or the same age as Maddison. So, I mean, if you can get Grealish in the summer at a knockdown price, if they get relegated, fine. I think Maddison's always going to be too expensive. I don't know, it's just a really odd position to settle for somebody. If you're going to do something like that, get in like loan in a kind of all-round midfielder as opposed to like going and overpaying for like
get
this.
James on loan, like we said before.
Yeah, that would be fine.
But it comes back down to everything, doesn't it? Recruitment at Manchester United is just a total fiasco. We're going to come out of January with McTominay long-term, Pogba long-term, Marcus Rashford fractured spine and still not sign a player. It's just as the richest or third richest club in the world, whatever it is.
Yeah, and I do think, I mean, obviously last night's result against Burnley, recording this on a Thursday as per usual, has stoked the Ollie out sentiments again. But I don't know what those people who are clamouring for him to be sacked want in next. It's now got to the point where it might even be beyond Pochettino to fix this club. You need a truly elite manager to plug all the holes, to paper over all the cracks that are emerging across the
no manager in the world can do it. No manager in the world can do it.
I mean, you still think Antonio Conte would be a good fit in terms of redressing the culture.
But he'd want new signings and we can't sign a player.
I mean, you did spend 150. I still think you get Pochettino if he's available, but let's cut this short because we've spoken about that before, because he potentially gets 10-20% more out of youngsters. But even then, it feels like just not worth it. What other clubs are we going to talk about?
Wolves stand, I think, a very good chance. At least they're the most sort of cohesive unit. They seem like they haven't got as many holes in as a Man United or a Tottenham, and at least they've got everybody settled and fairly fit right now
They have got
because
less
there's so many
upside,
injuries. So many injuries to the other boys. These boys are at least fit.
It's weird as well that they just like sort of chucked Catrone away, who would have been good depth for them. And
Yeah, that was a weird move.
gets shots, scores
Although
goals when he plays. Like I mean, even
Pedro
if you-
Neto's coming to the fore a little bit for them. He'd kind of overtaken
Yeah.
Catrone in the pecking order.
yeah,
haven't
well,
they?
they've always got these guys like kind of hovering around the edges of the squad who just don't play for them at all.
He scored on his Fiorentina debut, didn't he? He was pretty impressive. And I've heard that was more related to homesickness than necessarily an indictment, a damning indictment of his performances.
Yeah.
I do like Pulgo at Fiorentina as well. He's having a very good season.
Yeah.
I think maybe, there's a few teams that could use his services.
I don't think Wolves will sign anybody in January though.
Probably not.
I'd be surprised. I think they've got a fairly settled unit, haven't they? They actually seem like they're planning for the actual long-term Wolves rather than just chucking money at people short-term.
But that said, I think when you're in a season like this where a load of the big sides are having a down year, you can't bank on that happening again. Like you can build as intelligently as you want, but when you're faced with an opportunity like that and you're within touching distance, I think you have to go
you've got
and
to
do
close the
something
gap.
because because they can build as intelligently, and carefully like as they've planned to all along. But realistically, Chelsea are going to be better than this. Arsenal are going to be better than this. Spurs will be better than this. United probably will be a bit better than this. And you think, I'm not convinced that there's that much more room for them, especially because Raúl Jiménez is a good player, but he's not young. João Moutinho is not young. Some of their defenders are not young. And so it seems, you've got to ask yourself at a certain point, what are we playing football for? And when you're faced with an opportunity to get into the top four, I think you just have to go for it. If you're Wolves.
Yeah, and Wolves stand a great chance.
Yeah.
Like,
I think like 538 have got them at like 15% or something to make the top four, which is a big shot for someone like Wolves.
And if you're the Wolves' owner or the hierarchy, if you don't show the ambition to finish as high as possible, or strike while the iron is hot, like Pat said, then clubs will continue to circulate for Nuno, won't they? He was like an outside bet for a number of big clubs, wasn't he? Spurs, Arsenal, and I think his stock is only going to increase, and he's probably going to start to ask, a few more questions. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw them, break that £30 million club transfer fee that they paid for Raúl Jiménez either in the winter. I mean, that might be a little bit weirder, but certainly in the summer.
They're going to have to get another backup for Jimenez at some stage because it feels a little bit Vardy-esque, doesn't it? If Raúl Jimenez picked up a significant injury, the drop to Pedro Neto or whoever comes into that role.
Neto and Jota are like good at
little
playing behind the
struggle.
striker, right? Who else leads that line?
And Wolves' tactic is very much get the ball into Raúl Jimenez and then let people feed off him.
I suppose it's changed a little bit this season with Adama Traore emerging as just like a right winger.
And some of Matt Doherty's late runs into the box, they're so effective, aren't they? But
the reason they're effective is because Jimenez is occupying defenders.
pulls blokes about, and they're going to have to find a replacement for João Moutinho at some stage.
Yeah.
Still over 2 key passes per 90 this season. And he's 33, I want to say.
I think he's older.
And for $5 million, has got to be one of the Premier League's best bargains over the last few years. By the way, Sheffield United then. Do we see Sheffield United as realistic contenders for that top 4
What a Premier
spot?
League season where we're talking about like chasing a top 6 position. Sheffield United are in a conversation.
6 points off the top 4 or 7 points off the top 4.
They've just signed Robinson from Forest, haven't they? Which was odd because he wasn't really starting at Forest, and Forest fans weren't that sad to see him go. But I would not be surprised if Chris Wilder sprinkled a bit of his stardust on Robinson and became a very competent Premier League player.
A little bit of narrative around Sheffield United as well. They're obviously they've got the smallest budget in the Premier League by a long way. I think they had one of the smallest budgets in the Championship when they're down there. They're sort of looking at signing players from the Championship because that's what they know. But sort of £1 million signing for them is a lot of money. And recently, obviously, there's been a battle off the field between the ownership and they are 2 separate owners, and one owner has won it. But because that owner has taken full control, he has had to buy the stadium, the training ground, the attaching hotel and the surrounding area from the other owner, which has cost £40 million.
Okay.
So effectively, they've got no money now.
So
what they did have, that sort of £5 million budget, is gone.
But they're fine. Like, I mean, the thing is, their shot is not big enough at the top 4 that you'd really advocate spending a huge amount anyway. So from their point of view, they can just wait till the summer. The TV money comes in.
Yeah.
And it would be actually interesting to see. I could imagine spending money might end up being a problem for Sheffield United, just because they really share around all the responsibilities. They don't have an outstanding creator. They don't have an outstanding goal scorer. Everyone defends. Like ball progressions, like everyone does a bit, though Norwood does the most. Like, so it'll be interesting to see if they can upgrade personnel while keeping that kind of spread of
Norwood's
responsibility.
had a great season. He's top 10 in terms of deep progressions as well in the Premier League.
I think that the one that they are going to struggle to replace Dean Henderson. Dean Henderson's had an outstanding season for them, and unless Man United have a howler, he will be back at the club next season.
I suppose the great thing about that is, I mean, they don't concede. I think that it's less than a league average amount of shots. So they could bring in a good goalkeeper or a solid goalkeeper, and because their defence is so tight, it not make a huge difference. Don't get me wrong, Dean Henderson gives them those fine margins, which has put them in a better position. But I think picking up a goalkeeper would be least concerning for Chris Wilder.
Yeah, they've only conceded 23 goals this season as well, and I think that looking at that defence, the beauty of that defence is you don't see anybody sort of coming in going, I'm just going to take that.
I want Chris Basham.
I'm going to take Basham straight out of that.
Ender Stevens is like 28, 29.
Yeah, that's the beauty for Chris Wilder, is not many of that team are sort of the names that you come in and go, Man United really want John Fleck.
Yeah, but they want to play for him, won't they? Because these are guys that probably see themselves, only performing at that level under Chris Wilder in that specific system.
Do we see Arsenal coming in there? You're obviously level on points. You're looking at it now with Palace, Everton, Burnley and Newcastle, one behind Southampton. Do we see Arsenal under Arteta having a shot at top four? No? Too much of a distance to go?
Is it 1 win and 7?
10 points off you.
Markedly better.
Right? We've definitely improved quite a lot. Certainly the defence is improving, actually. The defence is pretty decent at the moment.
And the defensive work of your front guys as well, right?
Well, that's what I think has led to it, really. Like just people tracking back a lot. And I think that Martinelli coming into the side will be quite interesting because he's more of a natural fit on that left. But I don't know. I mean, there's definitely more to come from the side. Like, Behrin's just coming back, Tierney's still to come back, Ceballos might get some minutes if he doesn't cut his loan shot, which I don't think Arsenal will let him do. The question is whether we try and get a short-term defender, because obviously Chambers out for the season. Luiz is now going to sit out some games with this red card.
I think Saliba's back training with you at the moment.
Yeah, but
injured,
Saliba, we don't have the option to bring him in like 6 months early, and I wouldn't want to anyway. I think it's fine as it is. We've been linked with Mikola Matvienko from Shakhtar. Pretty heavy rumours, but I'll wait and see. So I wouldn't be surprised if we try and do something short-term defensively. I'd be surprised if we actually get Matvienko or someone on a
Kurzawa?
Kurzawa would be for the summer, and I don't really believe it. I still don't believe it, just because unless we've got a buyer lined up for Kolasinac, it doesn't quite make sense. And also, I think that the way that Saka's performed at left back, you'd say he's good enough, surely, at least to be Tierney's understudy.
Yeah, and Kurzawa's been rotten at PSG since
he's been injured forever. Not good.
Also, at the moment, Bernat's injured at PSG. Kurzawa's actually getting minutes, and Thomas Tuchel. Like, the expectations are massive for the next 6 months. Like, he's got to win everything and go deep in the Champions League. Is he going to want to lose a backup option, like who's getting minutes? No.
Yeah, especially with that Bernat injury for free. And
Arsenal were taking for free, sure.
Yeah, because Arsenal wanted him for free, didn't they? Yeah. But now I think he's playing. PSG are asking for a fee, and Arsenal are like, well.
But I still wouldn't be surprised if this was just agent talk. Like it doesn't quite make sense for me in that position. I can imagine it in other positions, but it's weird to me at left back, where I think we've now got Tierney, Kolasinac, Saka. That's fine.
Well, on the subject of agent chat, some of the more interesting stuff I've heard, I think this might have been in the Athletic podcast, is that Manchester City planning a big squad overhaul. We'll talk about, this actually addresses the question of catching up with Liverpool, who are averaging 2.9 points this season.
Impossible.
How do you maintain pace with someone like that? Absolutely ridiculous. Within that overhaul, a possible move to Real Madrid for Raheem Sterling might be on the cards, which would be pretty unthinkable at this stage because he is a key player in Pep's system. But he would be 27 at that point. I think when his contract runs out or begins to run out, he's always held or harboured aspirations of going to Real Madrid. What do we think about Man City more holistically then? And then we'll get on to Sterling.
Well, I think Man City must just accept this season that Liverpool are uncatchable. Like, you can't keep pace with a team that's going to drop 2 points all season. Like, it's unrealistic to think you can. So I think Pep will just be looking at the end of the season going, we need centre-backs, for sure. We're going to need a David Silva replacement. And I know that people are like, oh, Phil Foden's going to be that guy. They'll definitely sign a midfielder to replace David Silva. There's no way Pep just leaves that all to Phil Foden. And then there's the question about a striker, Sergio Aguero. I think Raheem Sterling leaving will be way down the agenda. I think it's incredible to think about Raheem Sterling going to Madrid. Why do Madrid need another forward to start with? I mean, they're just stockpiling them there, taking the piss, quite frankly. So I think Man City will put that way on the back burner, centre-backs.
Especially with Sane going.
Yeah,
like, that's
centre-backs and a
happen.
creative midfielder have got to be the priority for Man City in the summer.
I can't imagine anything less plausible than this story about Sterling. It makes no sense.
Yeah,
It's not the Real Madrid of like 2011-12 when it was just like if you wanted to go to one of the best clubs in the world, you were going to Real Madrid or Barcelona. Like Real Madrid are not better than City. And also, if there's a place they're well stocked, like it's definitely on the wings. They've got Hazard, who they only just brought in. They've got Rodrigo and Vinicius coming through in that position. Like it makes, if Raheem Sterling wants that, then like he's a lot stupider than I think he is. But I don't actually think he is stupid at all. Like I don't, and it's not like, oh God, I want to go there and work with Zidane. Like you're working with Guardiola. I think he's probably pretty happy where he is.
Yeah, I think this is just
Barcelona would make more sense.
I think this is pretty much idle paper chat, but it kind of just.
I think that the defence for Man City, though, we talk about catching up with Liverpool, needs a drastic overhaul. John Stones is having a nightmare campaign. I could imagine him being sold at the end of the season, potentially. Otamendi was meant to leave last summer, wasn't he? But they kept him because Vincent Kompany left. Eric Garcia is still very young. Was he 18? I think just broken into the scene.
No idea.
And then Laporte. Love Laporte, obviously one of the world's best defenders, but does have a sketchy injury record. Obviously broke his leg, didn't he? Double leg break at Athletic Bilbao, and then his ACL, was it most recently at Manchester City? So I'm sure they're going to go for two centre-backs in the summer. If they don't go for two centre-backs, it would be crazy. And
So
who
actually-
those centre-backs are, I don't know.
So actually, what we've kind of summarised there is the most. It's the second place team that probably catch up again with the first place team. They've got to have a pretty substantial summer, to maintain pace with Liverpool. And Liverpool are now just in that position where they can
Just pick up one or two.
such a good position, position of strength, to strengthen from. It's
Yeah, I
insane.
saw the reports Timo Werner wants to go to Liverpool earlier in the week in Build, wasn't it? It's Rafa Honigstein putting that out, and I was just thinking, Christ, just pick up Timo if they want to for 60 million euros. They're in that horrible position, Liverpool, where it's just like they can just pick and choose the sort of players that are going to go up to that next level and just take.
I don't
each
like
other
Manchester
best
United.
in
They
the
don't have to throw them in
Yeah.
straight away. They don't have to perform these players. Like Minamino can come in, rack up 6 to 800 minutes in the next 6 months and just learn the system.
Yeah, and they don't have to give them the big wages because they're just like, if you don't want to join us, we'll go for someone else then,
cool,
boy.
yeah.
Whereas United are like, oh, yeah, we need you.
Jadon Sancho, we talked about him to death, but
Chelsea.
Chelsea,
To Chelsea, isn't he?
summer.
Eventually.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you just think that's guaranteed?
Just don't see where else
Joe's
he
got the
goes.
inside
now.
track, innit?
Just don't see where does he go? Jadon Sancho?
I don't know, but I can't.
Bayern?
Barca.
Could be tragic.
God, someone else needs to move, don't they? Because I'm sick of talking about Jadon Sancho.
Should we move on? Anyway, I feel like the energy's dying in this segment.
Quick fire questions.
Yeah, let's move on to quick fire questions. Okay, first quick fire question from Tamish Bahal. Early predictions for PFA Player of the Year. We've got a bit of, already off camera, we had a bit of this. I think it's probably going to be Sadio Mane. It's got to be someone from Liverpool. Surely.
Oh, you were saying it was going to be Martinelli, I thought.
No, Sadio Mane.
Martinelli?
Not Martinelli.
Yeah.
Sadio Mane, maybe Virgil. Big Virgil.
Really?
Jordan Henderson.
I think
Hendo.
I think Virgil would make absolutely no sense this season. I find it easier to imagine it going to Trent than Virgil this season.
This is the world
Yeah.
we live in now, where I actually think Jordan Henderson deserves it more so than Virgil van Dijk. It's just absolute pandemonium in the Premier League.
Sadio Mane, surely for me, I think.
I don't know, man.
I think Jordan Henderson has just been the linchpin of that side, and he's gone from being underrated to actually just a very good player.
Yeah.
Like,
I know it's frustrating, isn't it?
he has improved his off the ball work. I was thinking about this the other day, just on the sofa, having watched like Liverpool, having watched Man United, and watching Maguire as captain, and watching Jordan Henderson as captain. And I know we've had this discussion before, and we think Pato thinks the idea of captaincy is overrated, but he is the chief organiser in that team, whereas Harry Maguire looked a little bit lost and unwilling to kind of shoulder that responsibility.
I mean, it helps when you do have an established system. You've been playing in
for
years.
sure.
But I mean, like, I don't know, man. Like, I feel like there's been such a clamour over the last few years for everybody to argue that everybody at Liverpool is one of the world's best in their position. I know that's not what you're saying, but in that process, there's only one player who's remained underrated at Liverpool, and it's probably Salah. Like, I think Salah is the guy who people are like, oh, he hasn't been all that this season or whatever. It's like, have you watched Mo Salah? Like, Mo Salah's genuinely world class in a way that a lot of the players in that team are just very good. So I would like Salah to get a little bit more credit currently, whereas it feels like because his first season was so obscene, everybody afterwards has been like, well, he's declined from that level. No, he's actually changed the way he plays, and he's still incredibly useful.
One of the hardest men to get off the ball.
He's so good, man. Like, he's so strong, he's so fast, like he's creative
ripped
as well. Like he's such a good. I don't know, man. I just feel like he's kind of an underrated guy. I think if Fabinho played the whole season, he'd be a candidate for this as well. But in terms of the highest level anyone's reached this season, it's probably KDB.
We're making this up.
KDB,
okay. So KDB for sure. So we've made it no clearer who we're putting forward from Liverpool. So one person from Liverpool.
It'd be Sadio Mane for me.
Trent.
I'll go Henderson.
I think Trent will win the Young Player of the Year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's
fair.
That's definitely
But I actually think that he's probably been Liverpool's most important player.
Jamie Vardy also, if he finishes the season as top goal scorer, is not beyond the realms of possibility. Jamie Vardy wins it.
Yeah.
How long is he meant to be out?
I'm not sure, but I think he was clutching his arse. I don't know if he tore his glute rather than his hamstring. Because obviously, I don't know if you prefer it to be that than hamstring.
I have no idea.
I don't know how long glute injuries put you out, but you could see Brendan Rodgers yelling from the sideline, "Is it your arse? Is it your arse?" I think he was hoping it would.
Not the hamstring.
Yeah, it was. But in general, I think KDB up there.
Okay.
KDB, Henderson, Trent,
Norwood.
Pick one.
Buendia.
Neto. Move on.
Okay. Danny Frost, 67, says, is the quality of the Premier League declining?
This a year after the conversation about whether the Premier League was back in the Champions League. Like, what are we talking about? Like, no.
The overall quality of the Premier League is definitely declining.
It's not declining, it's just having a down year. Like, do you really think all these teams are getting worse? Of course they're not.
Yes, they are. We're shot every team I've watched this season.
Man City have been so unlucky this season, man. Like,
their top two aside, the rest of the league is garbage.
I still think Chelsea are pretty good.
You're on about the compared to a traditional season, like an average season, because you can't say the rest of the league are garbage when Sheffield United have been as good as they have, Wolves have been as good as they have, Southampton have gone from the doldrums to 9th place.
But they're still only on 31 points.
Watford.
And also look at
they're only on
4 of the last
30 points.
And look at the teams you're comparing this to as well. Like, look at Serie A, where we're like, God, Inter are amazing this season. They didn't even get out of their Champions League group.
Oh no, I'm just comparing it to Premier League seasons gone by. This is the worst Premier League season in terms of quality I can remember.
Terrible. That's true, the traditional top 6.
But I think
fans.
But I think that's teams like underperforming or getting unlucky or like getting injuries or whatever, and sometimes not playing well, as opposed to those teams. When you compare them to the rest of Europe, then I think that you see that actually the Premier League is pretty strong. And plus, we used to say, wow, first season for a new manager, always difficult. Pochettino's first season at Spurs, not particularly great. Well, Lampard's in his first season. Arteta's still in his first 10 games. Mourinho's only just got past 10 games.
I mean, look at La Liga's always been the reference point, hasn't it? La Liga's always been...
It's pretty poor.
And Quique Setién, a man who was in charge of Equatorial Guinea about 10 years ago, is now leading, Barcelona. That's not to say we don't like him, but that's how tough it is out there at the moment to kind of reinvent a side.
I guess
it's all right.
I'm just thinking of comparative levels. Like the fact that Chelsea are in 4th, only 10 points off 14th, is and they're only on 40 points. Or 40 points from 24 games is a disgrace. They've lost 8 times and they're 4th. It's shot to bits. 14th position are on 30 points from 24
No one's
games.
disagreeing with that, but that's a down season as opposed to being in decline. Like, you look at Chelsea and you're like, well, it's easy to see how Chelsea get better next season, or their 21-year-olds are 22.
But isn't this a nod to the competitiveness as well that we've all been championing for the last 3 or 4 years? Like, the fact that you couldn't just go and steamroll a mid-table club away from home was used as a way of kind of expressing how competitive, how good the Premier League is. And now it's, I think Chelsea couldn't... I
would agree if the competitiveness was of a good standard. But it feels like every game I've watched this season has been poor standard. I can't remember that many good quality games.
So you're on about the level of football?
Yeah, if it was competitive,
which is a
I'd be
I don't know, that depends what you mean. Sometimes when you watch a Burnley or a Sheffield United and you think, God, this is a shit game. That's because they want it to be a shit game and they're really good at making it a shit game. Like some teams do that. Like sometimes when you're watching Atleti against like a really big side, if you watch Atleti against, they've got Liverpool, right, in the Champions League. If you're watching that game and you think, God, this is a game, Atleti are delighted. That means Atleti are winning.
Yeah,
like, so
I'm not sure
I think it's sometimes a little bit unfair.
Like I watched.
I think Sheffield are. Sheffield United.
Chelsea, Arsenal, for instance, the 2-2. I thought the quality is so bad.
Yeah, but partially
so
that is.
low.
But when one side goes down to 10 men, like I think that actually almost always makes a game pretty bad quality.
If you're a purist as well, you're seeing like Manchester City and Liverpool are playing some of the best stuff we've seen in Premier League history, right? And
Liverpool in particular,
inevitably that comes with a downside.
Yeah.
That dilutes the competition, doesn't it? And actually, how many times have we had it in Premier League history where 3 or 4 sides have had to reinvent themselves in that top 6 at the same time?
Yeah.
Like I don't think. And they're all probably rejoicing in the shared mediocrity, because if that wasn't happening, Jose's probably out of a job already. Ollie's probably out of a job already.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I think
Arteta doesn't get as much time to turn it around.
That classic top 6 for sure, but I think even some of the chasing pack have been just incredibly mediocre. And are only competing for those roles because the top 6 has been that bad.
I think if Wolves of last season was in the league this season, I think they'd probably be in 4th.
We saw a backlash after Leicester won the league, didn't we? In 15-16. I think for the next 3-4 years, it was the traditional top 6 finishing in that top 6 again. I fully expect all the clubs after this season to really sort house.
Yeah, maybe. Other than Man United.
Well, and they're a lot younger. All those sides have got like Chelsea, Arsenal, and United in particular have got way younger in the last year. So you'd assume they should just get better from those guys getting a year older.
Okay, let's finish with a personal question then. Curler HD, what is your favourite holiday destination?
Curler.
Can I just say, the standard questions this week, lads.
He's close to losing his head.
Some
Man United.
I don't know what that means.
Related angst.
Favourite holiday destination you've been?
But
Japan,
what does that mean?
Probably for you.
Yeah, but you're like, is that the best holiday you've ever had, or a place you want to go back to again and again? Like,
we must have done it. We must have done iterations of this about 100 times. So, I'm just gonna say, you know, I really enjoyed the tranquil nature of Iceland.
Iceland, Pat.
Japan, Sri Lanka, Brazil,
Has living in London changed what you want from a holiday?
Not really.
Do you just want serenity, peace, quiet, no fumes that don't give you dementia?
I don't know, because my favourite is New York, so I don't know.
Yeah, and in Japan, like my favourite thing was being in Tokyo. I like a big city.
Okay.
But I know what you mean. Like sometimes you're like, if I have to do anything on this holiday, like literally anything, I'll go out of my mind. If anyone speaks to me.
Oh, so that's the end of Sunday Vibes. What an absolute show. If you want to get your question answered next week, make sure you slap it in the comments below, send it to us on Twitter. There's a football social this weekend.
There is. There's also a new video out, not that new, on FDPL, so go and check that. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Within the podcast this week, right?
There is a podcast going out. It's an interview that Zach's done. So that will be going live with, what is it, Adam Rooney, I think.
I think it was in the Cubs as well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but I mean, come on. Zach's the star.
Zach produced it. There we go. Bye.